you might be the fastest sprinter on the team, right? And you're running your 40s, you're running your 100s. But who is the kid who is still pushing it those last 3 yards of the 40-yard sprint? You know, it's just like, and as a teacher, I'm kind of the same way. Because you deserve this extraordinary, the best possible education that I can give you, we're going to squeeze every second out of every single day, not to be difficult, but because you deserve it.
Welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast, where men get real. Men of all ages and backgrounds come to this space to talk about these masks we wear. The front of the mask are the things that we gladly let the world see. The back of the mask are the things that we don't talk so much about. Maybe you can ask yourself right now, what mask are you wearing today? Today's guest is David Reese. David is a teacher at Oberlin High School. He is one of the co-facilitators of the men's program, the young men's program at that school. He is a teacher for over 25 years, an educator. And as an educator myself, I'm so in awe of teachers who can stay in the profession for long times like that. David is also working to make sure that his young men in his school have a safe space, and they're expanding their program next year. What an incredible opportunity. Right now, I'm here and right down the hill from the Juvenile Detention Center in Alameda County. Just finished a training with the probation department. What a beautiful group of young people who are doing their work to put their lives back in order. And I'm so thankful that Ever Forward gets to be a part of that. And so, as you know, when we're on location, it's sometimes hard, but we found a spot right here amongst the trees with not too many things that are distracting. But I'm so excited about this conversation. Every time we get a chance to talk to educators, it's just another engagement of men who are doing their work to then be able to do the work for others, which is what's so important. So as we move into this next school year and summertime is here, we know we'll be talking to even more educators to really begin building out not only our education series that we have with Donald Friend. We are also connecting with educators who are doing this work, the Million Mask Movement, in their classrooms and in their communities. Today, we just had some new conversations with people internationally, and we look forward to what we get to do in 2024-2025 school year. So take good care, be well, enjoy this conversation with David Reese, and we'll see you soon, folks. Take care. Bye now. David Reese, welcome to the Taking Off the Mask podcast. So glad to have you.
Ashanti branch, what a pleasure to be here. I look forward to this conversation.
Well, you know, I almost had a conversation before the conversation. I'm sad that we didn't capture all the goodness we just talked about, but I feel the flow already happening. So how about, will you introduce yourself to folks and let them know what you want them to know about you before you and I jump into these masks?
Yeah, sure thing. So my name is David Reese. I'm 49 and a half. Last year, I decided to make it a big deal to be, 48 and a half, because you talk to a kid who's 7, like, I'm 7 and a half. And I'm like, I'm 49 and a half. I'm going to make a big deal out of that. But I've been teaching for more than 25 years. I'm a high school English teacher at Oberlin High School in Oberlin, Ohio. I'm the last of 10 kids in my family. That is like one of the pillars of my life, is my relationship to my family. So I teach high school English, but I consider myself to be one of the least well-read English teachers you'll ever meet. I read one book in all of middle school and high school, and that obviously changed in college, but it's kind of something that I think has enabled me to maybe be a more empathetic and compassionate teacher, so that when students walk into my room who don't like reading, I'm like, that was me, right? I walked in those shoes, and I've created this like curriculum and hopefully this experience that will kind of like change your relationship to reading, writing, and thinking. So people ask, have you read X, Y, and Z? I'm like, no, I have not. But something happened like in college, and I've kind of fallen in love with learning. And you'll see when I present my mask that, on the front, one of the items on the front of my mask is Fascination. And so I'm on fire with learning and with curiosity. Let's see. I think that is a big part of my life, family, who I am as a teacher. And I'm definitely, at some point, we're going to want to talk about Johnny Cole and I, who is a former student of mine, and we've started the Oberlin High School men's work project. And we just wrapped up this year. And it's been one of the most extraordinary things that I've been a part of. And I can't wait to incorporate that into the conversation. And I'm going to ask you a quick question. Sorry, I didn't get to this earlier, but I'm curious how your sister is doing. I heard on a recent podcast, she said had some medical stuff going on, and I'm hoping that she's doing okay.
Yeah. Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Yeah, she's doing much better. She's doing much better. She sent my mom home, which is a good sign. She told my mom, "Got it, time to go, time to go." So I know if she released my mom from mom duties, then she's doing much better. And her and my mom are really close. So I'm the oldest of 4. So the youngest of 10. I can't imagine. I can only imagine, but definitely that oldest is a big role. But it was all boys and one girl. So her and my mom are really close. So I'm glad that she's on the mend. So it's really exciting.
Oh, that's great to hear.
Yeah, thank you for asking. I appreciate that. Well, as a guest of the show, you get to decide who goes first. Either you want to go first and then or I'll go first, and we'll start with the front of the mask and then we'll go to the back of the mask afterwards. But you get to decide.
Okay, I thought about this morning while I was making my mask, and so here's what we're gonna do. You got to close your eyes,
Okay.
and I'm gonna flash on one hand a number on the screen,
Okay.
and it's gonna be odd or even. And if you're correct, right? If you say even, it's even, you're gonna go first.
Okay.
If you say odd and it's odd, you'll go first. And if it's not, I will go first.
Okay.
All right. So your eyes are closed, right?
Eyes are closed.
Okay. All right. So are you calling odds or even?
I'm calling even.
Okay. Go ahead and open your eyes.
Hey.
All right. So it was an odd. So I think that means I'm going first. Is that correct?
I think that's where I heard it. That's where I heard it. That's where.
Okay. Okay. So here's my mask. And I'm pretty proud of it. All right. So here's the front of my mask.
Okay.
And you can see that I got the 3 items on the front of my mask. I got sense of humor, passion, fascination. Now, because I'm a word person, there are some words that I took a moment to look up the definitions for. Sense of humor doesn't need any explanation, but passion. I looked up the definition of passion, and it said ardent affection, which is cool because it reminded me. In between my sophomore and junior year of college, I was a counselor at a camp in New Hampshire, and there were kids from, counselors from all over the country, as well as a number of other countries. And there was a young woman from Wales, and she said, Reese, she says, that's Welsh for ardent one. And I didn't even know what the heck ardent meant. And she's like, well, it kind of means passionate. And I was like, yeah, all right, that's pretty cool. So I'm sense of humor. I let people see that my passion for lots of things, but especially life, and also fascination. That's on the outside of my mask. And the definition of fascination is the state of feeling an intense interest in something. And I definitely do. And I kind of don't know where that came from. Those are my 3 items on the front of my mask.
Thank you. I like that. I thank you for the definition. I've used passion in so many of my masks. I think I used it yesterday, but this one today, I didn't put it for some reason. So it's like when I'm not being thoughtful, it's kind of like one of the words I go to because I'm very passionate, but I try and be in the moment of what I'm writing. Passion, ardent affection. Yeah, beautiful. Ardent affection. I like that. Okay. See, I learn something new all the time. Well, I'm gonna go next. Here's the front. This is the mask I'm working on. It's an image I'm working on. I'm gonna design it for real one day. This mask here. But the 3 words today are things I gladly let people see. Funny. I love to laugh. I wish I had made more time to laugh. I'm always so serious, which is, when I get a chance to show the funny side or make jokes, it's something I really enjoy, but I'm oftentimes find myself really serious. And then travel. I think, I don't know if I've put travel here on the front before, but I think the reason it's standing out to me is because I told a mentor this morning that I commit to scheduling my vacation this summer. I'm overdue. I'm beyond overdue. So I love to travel, and I've traveled for work a little bit this year, but
like I haven't had a vacation in quite a while. So he said, you got to schedule it because I know me. Something will come up and somebody invite me to a meeting. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I can come. And then I look up and there's no more time to take a vacation before school year starts. And so I made a commitment to like putting it on my calendar. So that's on the front, and and I do enjoy traveling. So it's like I'm starting to project the end of July. There's a week on the calendar that it says, don't call me. No, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say that. But it's not going to be at work.
Yeah. And I love that, especially the balance between the funny and the serious, is kind of like, in a way, it's like a really healthy yin and yang kind of thing. Yeah. And I've noticed in a number of texts that I find fascinating that I'm able to incorporate into the classroom is that some of like the most profound people also have this amazing sense of humor. And it's just like you kind of need that. And so I don't know, but it makes sense that those two come together, and then you have travel underneath it, which is like, okay, I need to schedule the vacation because the serious has been like, we've been too serious too long, and I gotta get a little break in there. And that resonates with me because I'm the same way. My wife knows, like, she's like, don't ask David when the last day of school is, because he doesn't know until it hits him, right? Because you got to have your foot on the gas all the way up to the end. And then I'm like, okay, now it's time for vacation. When I'm going on vacation, like, I'm on vacation. But if I ain't on vacation yet, we got work to do.
We got work to do. Oh, man, I'm glad that's going to come back. I mean, I thank you for saying that, because we got work to do. We got work to do until the end. And I think, yeah,
that's right. Yes. Okay. So at some point I'll probably talk about, my family, but also high school football was really big for me. And my coaches were amazing human beings. And in recent years, kind of like a call and response thing is like, we fight, like, to the end, we fight. It's like, you go. And so you might be the fastest sprinter on the team, right? And you're running your 40s, you're running your 100s. But who is the kid who is still pushing it those last 3 yards of the 40-yard sprint? It's just like, and as a teacher, I'm kind of the same way, because you deserve this extraordinary, the best possible education that I can give you. We're going to squeeze every second out of every single day, not to be difficult, but because you deserve it. Because we got work to do, right? Because life is fascinating. We want to live this thing at a deep and fulfilling level. So I love it. Yeah, we got work to do.
We have work to do. And as an English teacher, you're an English teacher. I was a math teacher. So, and I think that for students who have the allergy of math, like they're allergic to it, like it just seems ridiculous that I would be still trying to do more work the day before a break. I'm like, well, we're not doing new work. We're doing review work, but we still got stuff to do, right? And I think I hated English growing up, so I understand some of those students in that class. But it was not if it wasn't for Miss BP in middle school, who changed my life. I have a huge appreciation for English teachers, because that's definitely, I had the phobia of English. I loved math class, but English class, I'm like, please save me, please.
Yeah, I would have been the right teacher for you, because I didn't like it either.
Okay, so that's the front. Now we're at the front. Now we're heading to the other territory. We're heading to the next chapter.
Okay, so now we're moving on to the back of the mask.
Now, are you all still in school right now, or are you all on break right now?
We had exams today, and we'll have another set of exams tomorrow, and then that'll be it. Okay. So that was a student who just poked his head in through the window to say hello.
I saw the affection. It was fantastic. It was magnetic.
Okay, so we're going to the back of the mask, correct?
Yes.
So here's my front of the mask, and then boom, look at my drawing to the back of the mask. Right, I thought that was pretty clever. And on the back of my mask, I've got disappointment, despair, and shades of inner turmoil. I've been thinking about the back of the mask for a couple of weeks, actually. And so the disappointment, I looked up the definition for disappointment, and it's sadness or displeasure caused by non-fulfillment of one's hopes or expectations. despair, definition of despair is to lose hope. And then shades of inner turmoil. The definition for turmoil is a state of great commotion, confusion, or disturbance. So even though those are on the back of my mask, I'm also not too afraid to share those with people who are close, because I have learned as an educator the value of vulnerability and made my wife and I will celebrate 19 years of marriage in August, but like anything that lasts that long, you got ups and downs. And, maybe it was like around year 8 or 9, and we had some big struggles. And I tell students like how thankful I am that I got to go see a marriage counselor. And even though I like to think and I like to contemplate and ask myself questions, my counselor was able to ask me questions that I had not considered and got me to be able to see things that I haven't been able to see up until that point. And there was tremendous value there. And then one day in a class, an elective class that I teach called Global Perspectives on the Human Spirit, Science, and Faith, which is a fancy way for saying it's a class on what it means to be human and an examination of the human condition. At some point, we was talking about therapy and getting help. And I had mentioned mine, and then another student mentioned kind of like what they've gained from going to their therapist, and then another student did. And weeks later, I remember a student recalling that moment, and they were like, oh, it's okay for us to kind of like show that here, to reveal that here. And ever since then, it's something that I'm like, yeah, like I'm going to kind of show you the back of my mask. You're definitely not going to see it all because we ain't got time for that. And that is not your responsibility, but I have that too. But disappointment and despair, shades of inner turmoil. I'm definitely a positive person. But I was listening to a conversation this week on being and a couple of experts on Hannah Arendt, who, again, not being a reader, I'm not familiar. I hear her name a lot in terms of philosophy, but it doesn't really ring a bell. And now it's starting to kind of make some sense. And one of the experts was talking about that you can hear the bell, or like this idea that you can, that the clock is ticking. And so when you consider things like the global climate crisis, my wife and I having 2 daughters and thinking about the possibility of grandkids, and living in Ohio, we have access to one of the Great Lakes, and the Great Lakes on I think like on planet Earth, it's like 90% or 93% of fresh water that's on the surface of the planet. And that's just like right up the road from me. But when I look at these, huge bodies of fresh water and being so close to them, I'm like, when are there going to be wars that are fought over this thing? And so that's like one element of the ticking clock that has me down. Disappointment in myself and not accomplishing what I wanted to accomplish. But I balance that with the joy of teaching that I can get better. That's what kind of keeps me on fire, is that I can improve. And that always has me leaning in to the day, to the week, to the month, to the school year, knowing that I can do a little bit better next year. But disappointment in myself, disappointment sometimes in others, moments where I can lose some hope. And then the shades of inner turmoil is something much bigger. And I didn't have, Ashanti, I didn't have that language until this morning. And I was like, yeah, that kind of makes sense right now, because I think stuff kind of makes sense for me, but I'm also not sure. And so I like how the word turmoil has kind of like a connection to the word turbulent. So there's friction, but that's the back of my mask today.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I resonate with so much of it. And I think as I get ready to put mine, I'm gonna put my last word on here that I was trying to figure out what's the last word gonna be. And I'm going to I know you're an English teacher here. I'm gonna make sure I spell it right.
Oh, don't worry. I'm one of the worst spellers on the planet as well. But I tell students I don't let my poor spelling stop me, right? Because spell check is free.
That's right.
And now with a cell phone, I can just speak it. I'm like, oh, that's how you spell it.
Well, this is actually powerful. So I'm gonna go with the first two that I already had. I put anger in my best chick. I put frustration because I normally describe my anger as I'm frustrated, but I don't usually give myself permission to show anger, even though deep down sometimes it's stirring. And I put about education. So I'll come back to what about education. I put worry, and the one that I'd never had language for until like right now is, I would say, shades of inner turmoil. And I don't have an explanation for that one yet because I'm still marinating it. But I think I was talking to a mentor the other day, and I felt like, I know he doesn't judge me, but we were at dinner, and I felt like everything I'm talking about is problems, and I felt like, is he going to get annoyed by this? And I was like, as I was watching him, he was just empathetically listening. Because I know what it's like for young people when I do this work as a mentor, I'm there for them 100%. Like, there's nothing they can tell me that's going to have me run away. Like, I'm going to try my best to support. What do you want from me? How can you want me to listen? You looking for some thoughts? What do you want me to do in this conversation? And he was doing that. And while I'm watching him do that for me, I'm asking myself, I think I may be going too much. I think I may be, and it's an empathy thing, because it's what I see my students do all the time. They want to come talk to me about something, and then they're like one young man the other day was like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about it." I'm like, "Okay, well, you don't have to talk about it. I just want you to know that, like, I can hear it in your voice, but whenever you're ready, you let me know. No pressure." And then he brings it up again. "Well, I don't want you to think bad of me." I'm like, "When have I ever thought bad of you? Like, what?" And so he keeps bringing it up, and I'm trying to like tell him, you don't have to say anything about it. You don't have to talk anymore about it, but he wants to. And he's testing the water of how much he can tell me before it erupts. And I felt like, as I was talking to my mentor, and thank goodness I have him now in my life, I didn't have him growing up. It's like, I worry that I'm sharing all of these tough things that are going on with me. It's this inner turmoil that I normally keep behind the smile and the funny and the serious hard worker. But deep down, I feel a lot of frustration about our world, and the anger and the frustration about education, just like you talked about. I think one of the things I experienced this month of May, we participated in Mental Health Action Day, May 16th. We reached out to lots of educators. And listen, I was a teacher for 10 years. I was an administrator for 3. I know that in May, teachers are exhausted. They're wiped out. They're tired. And I was like saying to them, look, we made this simple as possible. You don't have to do a whole lot. We got everything ready for you. Just invite your students to make this mask anonymously. Don't send them on to summer without having a tool to recognize they're not alone. Like, you can send them on with a visual understanding that other people in their community are going through stuff. And that it was absolutely, and knowing that they're tired, and knowing that they're exhausted, and knowing that our education system doesn't always value teachers the way we need to, we should, is that part is like, but yeah, but can you do this one thing? Can you just do this one thing? And knowing that I got it, I get it, and I'm trying to push against it, and I'm trying to fight for kids in a way that I think sometimes in the exhaustion of education, what it does to teachers by the month of May, it's like, I can't add anything else. Yeah, we should do something, but we don't have time to do anything, and maybe next year. And I'm like, all right, well, we'll come back next year. But in my mind, I'm like, but you didn't do anything last September or last October or last November. Like, how about you just do this one? And I know that I don't want to sound like a salesman either. So I'm also like, okay, we'll wait till next year. I don't want to be too pushy. I don't want to be overbearing. But my frustration about education, my worry about kids makes me feel that way. Feel the need to like, no, now Like now, how many kids are we sending home to not homes that are loving and caring and supportive? We know we're sending some of them. Who knows how many of them? But so we're always trying to figure out how to err toward the bias towards action is the phrase we use in the D school, right? We're like bias towards action. Let's just do some small action. You don't do everything, but here's one action you can take. So those are the things that are really pressing right now from coming from the back.
Yeah, well, I feel like that might be a great segue to talk about, what we've done this year with the Oberlin High School Men's Work Project.
Yeah, please do.
So I love this bias towards action. I've never thought about language like that. And I guess I'm just going to start at the end. So last Thursday, we had our last session, and we have 19 boys from 9th grade through 12th grade. And 2 of them were not there because they were graduating seniors. So so we had a smaller group. But what we had was, the boys, one boy was standing at the center of the circle, and they just received affirmations and compliments and recognition, kind of like popcorn style, right? So there was no order to it, but you just spoke. And so the boys were talking about, like, we've been friends since, and it might be we were 2 or 5th grade or 6th grade, or, we haven't hung out like we did when we were in middle school, but here's what I recognize about you. And it was just, Ashanti, it was just positive thing after positive thing. And it was so healthy and wonderful and nuanced and uplifting. And as I was talking, I was reflecting on it with my oldest daughter, who just finished her 10th grade year. And she's like, Dad, that's what I want. She's like, I want to be a part of something like that. And we all do. So I'm starting at the end, and that's where it was. So all of this, like, elements of positive things, but it was a road to get there. Now, with the 19 kids that that were a part of this, we kind of went with a number of boys who we thought this would resonate with. We're a very small public school. We've only got like 330 kids in the entire high school. So it's a small school. It's a small town. In terms of racial dynamic, it's depending on the class, it's usually like about 50 to maybe 60% of our class is white. And then you'll have like 20% identifies as Black, and 25% identifies as mixed. We have a small Latinx population, but in many ways, our demographics is very parallel to the demographics of the United States of America. And within our 19 group of boys, I think 10 out of 19 identify as students of color. So in terms of race or ethnicity, it is a very diverse group, as well as like socioeconomic status or background. But these are boys who are engaged in a lot of things in school. They're already kind of like pretty thoughtful, positive, and we kind of wanted to create a critical mass. And we have, and we're going to go 19 this year. We're going to have 30 next year, and it's kind of like spilling out.
Yeah.
So here, like where it started was I'll just talk kind of like about what it means to have affirmations and to speak affirmations to yourself and to others. Because those would always be a part of our check-in. Like, how am I doing physically? How am I doing emotionally? And then some sort of affirmation. And a couple of sessions into it, it got to the end of the circle, and Johnny Cole said, now, were those compliments or were those affirmations? And the boys were like, oh, shoot, what's an affirmation again? And then they're like, oh, it's like you're capable of doing good things, right?
Yeah.
You're an empathetic person, and that's actually a strength of yours. You are good enough. You do not need to be perfect because you are good enough at this thing. So develop some understanding of those affirmations. And then we had this challenge. It's like we get together every 2 weeks. It's like, okay, here's the deal. We've been getting a little bit more comfortable with affirmations here amongst ourselves. But now what you need to do between now and 2 weeks from Thursday is you need to provide someone in this crew with an affirmation, but it can't be in this room, right? We meet kind of like in the library, the media center, but it has to be outside of this space. And so 2 weeks later, we come back and the boys are mentioning like, okay, I got an affirmation from sir. And it would go like, do you remember what they said? And a lot of times they wouldn't remember what they said, but we say, well, how did it feel? Like, it felt good. You know? And so after a while, we started to normalize positive statements to each other that are uplifting. And I was like, how much money did that cost? Nothing. How much time did it take? Not much. And prior to this, you would have boys, if they like each other, they're gonna dig on each other, right? It's gonna be some language that is some element of sarcasm, and be like, well, you know what I mean, right? But it's all language that was like tearing down. Now all of a sudden, it's language that is building up. Ashanti, you could feel it in the room. You could feel these boys starting to bend towards goodness and appreciating goodness. And then like the emotional nuance started to arrive. And we had a session maybe like a month ago about the language that we use to and about women. And there was a 9th grade boy said, because we examined the language and we're like, man, look at how violent this language is. Look at how dominating this language is. And it's very physical. And a 9th grader said, I hear this language. I know that it's not good language, but I want to fit in so bad that I use that language. And so, you know, Brene Brown says something to the effect of, we want to belong so bad that we will let go of who we are in order to belong. And so this is a young man who is in 9th grade who says this profound thing on his own. He's like, I know that the language isn't good, but that's the language people are using, and I want to fit in. And if I use language that I know is better, I'm going to sound corny. Right? And so again, all of a sudden, and ultimately we're doing this work because we want to be able to dismantle Tony Porter's man box and live a more fuller life with all of this beautiful array of emotions. And we get together for 50 minutes every other Thursday, and it has spilled over into the hallways, into the other classes. I mean, we still got a lot of work to do, but Ashanti, I've never been a part of a program that has been so transformative. Oh, okay. And now, almost like our second to last session, a 10th grader is talking. He tells the group, he's like, I was talking with my dad. And he's like, and he says, and I'm not going to get this exactly right, but he's like, Dad, I notice that you seem to keep a lot of things inside. And he asked him, like, why is that? And he's like, well, that's what my dad was like, and that's what my grandpa was like. So here's a 15 or 16-year-old boy talking with his dad about like inner emotions and dealing with that stuff and opening up. And then it had a domino effect. Another boy talked with his dad. He's like, Dad, I know you had hard circumstances in life growing up, but I see the things that you do for me and my sister, and I just want you to know that I'm proud of you. Like, and so here are these boys. Not only has it been transforming them and allowing them to understand themselves and others more and to be kinder to themselves and to others, they're now talking with their own fathers, right? And it's amazing, right? And I've so the transformation has just been so fantastic. And so when I tear up, I'm like, oh, and by the way, I'm not going to be apologizing for these tears because this is what I'm feeling. And I'm on fire with being alive. And this stuff that's beautiful, I'm going to tell you it's beautiful. And you're probably also going to see it in my face or in my tears that it's beautiful. And so it has been an awesome thing. And I know you had a conversation with Johnny Cole, some time in the past, but we're on to something really magnificent, and we look forward to kind of like taking it to the next level and incorporating more of like the athletic coaches and more of the teachers in the building, and then maybe even like after that going out to other schools as well in the region.
Yes. First of all, congratulations on the transformation. Congratulations on the building that community, and I'm so proud that the end turned out to see the work coming together. I two questions that come to mind. One is, what was it in either this moment or in that moment that brought those tears for you? What was it? What was
talking about fathers? And I had a great one. We had a great one. So like I told you, I'm the last of 10 kids. And when our dad died 8 years ago, my brother Dan gave the most extraordinary eulogy. And he said, if I can be 1/10 of what our dad was, right, I will be an amazing human being. And he is, and he's more than that. John Cole and I, like our relationships to our fathers couldn't be more different. And whereas his dad was a part of the murder battalion, in South Africa, my dad would hear classical music and he would be moved to tears. He wouldn't be sobbing, but here come these tears. And so growing up as a young man, I got to see that, and it was normal. And, you get to middle school, you're like, what kind of person do I want to be? Do I want to be in sports? Do I want to be in music and theater? Do I want to kind of like, do well in the classroom or like student council or whatever? And I was kind of like, I don't know, but I've seen it in my siblings. I'm just going to kind of try and do everything and see what happens. And so like my siblings as role models, amazing. But then especially, our parents and the role that they played in life. And so here's another like beautiful story of that, that kind of like captures who my dad was. So I grew up in Huron, Ohio, great football coaches, great football program. My mom and dad grew up on the west side of Cleveland. They went to a school named Holy Name. And one particular year, Huron is going to play Holy Name. And I tell my dad about this, and I tell Coach Legando, and Coach Legando of the Huron Tigers, he's like, well, I trust that your dad is going to be wearing red and gray, and he's going to be on our sideline when we play Holy Name. And I said, absolutely. He's like, we'll make him our honorary captain. So part of that involved being in the locker room before the football game when the defense was going through their walkthroughs and kind of like calling out different formations. And here's the defense that we'll do. And here's an automatic adjustment based on this formation. So all the kind of like the X's and O's. But it's in this beautiful room that has kind of like the banners of when they won the conference and regionals and state runner-up and stuff like that. And Coach stops everything, brings everyone in, and it's a very kind of quiet, hushed environment. And he says, you see these banners, and you see these years. He's like, if there were banners for families in Huron, Ohio, who have done great things, you would see, and then he introduces my dad, Don Reese, to the group. You would see his name on one of these banners, right? Which is what an accomplishment! Like what a great affirmation. And we're on the bus traveling to the football game, and Coach Legando turns around to me, gets my attention, and he says, hey, when I was talking about your dad, did I see him tearing up? I was like, oh, Coach, absolutely. Are you kidding me? He's like, that's how he's always been. Things that are beautiful to him move him to tears. And why would you not? Right. And so it was just interesting for him to recognize it in that moment. And I'm like, oh, yeah, that's how he's been, my entire life. And so, you talk about parents, you talk about fathers. And so the role that my dad played in my life was just, I'm just so thankful for that. So thus, kind of getting choked up and moved to tears with that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for presencing him. What was his name?
Donald Reese.
Right on.
They called him Mo.
Yeah,
Mo Reese. Yep.
Mo Reese. Well, thank you for presencing Mo Reese. And thank you for letting that feel come to the surface. I think, that is the work. And for you being able to model that for your young men in that circle is so powerful. And I think having the ability to not say, oh, I'm sorry, or hide it, and giving them permission to say, oh, wait, then maybe that is okay. Maybe the human part of me that feels fully is welcome here too, as opposed to the person who people expect of me or I've been trained to be. I think that's so powerful. And I really like the. I'm going to do some homework around compliment versus affirmation. I'm going to do that after this because I want to think about that because I think it's definitely something I want our young men to. At our middle school program this year, which was the one we had on a weekly basis, it was a lot of work with them because that in middle school age, is a lot less mature than the high school, even though it's only 2-3 years away. But that ability to not have to want to be seen, but totally okay being seen for negative reasons. To want to be heard, but only want to be heard when you're tearing something down as opposed to building up. And we did a lot of work this year with those young men around that. And some of them came to a really beautiful place, and some of them are still working through it. And it's a work in progress. At the end, you want to be like, yes, we tied it together with a bow. We finished it. And some years I'm like, oh, goodness. Oh, I hope he has a good summer. I hope he has a good summer. But
right. So here's an example of a big step that we took. And it was early in the spring. And I told John, I think like the next step for us is to become more comfortable with touch. And he's like, yes, absolutely. I got it. And so here's we arranged chairs and you were sitting in a chair. So not a desk, but sitting in a chair. And basically it would be like you and I sitting almost knees touching each other. Okay. Mm-hmm. So we're both in a chair facing each other, right? Which already is kind of awkward. And Johnny's like, okay, I got a timer here, right? Here's what we're going to do next is we are going to engage in eye-to-eye, contact without talking, right? There's probably going to be some giggles because it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable, but we're not going to be speaking, and we're going to try not to break the eye contact that we have. So sustained eye contact, we're going to go for 60 seconds. Mm-hmm. And the kids are like, oh man, right? It is like, looking away. Okay. All right, here we go. And we lock eyes, right? And of course we're giggling. And sometimes the boys are also doing stuff to make it silly, right? To be a little bit of a challenge. And so, all right, it works. It doesn't work. That was step one.
Yeah.
And then step two was with your same person, you got out of the chairs and you stood back to back and you leaned a little bit against them. I don't know if you've probably done stuff like this. I had not. And so you would lean back to back and then you would try and sync up your breathing. And so I would feel your inhale and I would inhale at the same time. I would feel your exhale and exhale at the same time. And we did that for several minutes. And Johnny and I were paired together. And, sometimes when you have the leaders breathing a little bit louder, it makes it easier for you to breathe a little bit louder. All right. So that activity was that activity. We reflect on that. And then we go back into our chairs. And we're like, okay, now we're going to do the eye contact again. And for 60 more seconds. And so sets the timer. And even though there were still giggles, there was a very different presence in the room.
Yeah.
But then when the boys talked about it, they were like, okay, some of us were still giggling, But after the physical contact, like the eye contact was no longer strange. It was no longer something that you wanted to avoid. So the first time you did it, you wanted to avoid it.
Yeah.
But then after the breathing and the back to back, it kind of normalized it. And which is just so fascinating that now all of a sudden, because of that activity, it's a little bit easier to maintain eye contact is just amazing. And then we took it one step further with like real hugs, not this big dap slap on the back kind of thing, but a real hug.
Mm-hmm.
And because we got freshmen through seniors, you got kids who are really tall and kids who are not so tall, kids with long arms and not so long arms. And there are several of these boys who they just started to get really good at getting and receiving hugs. Now, I'm going to fast forward about 4 weeks later.
Yeah.
We had state testing going on, so we were missing a lot of 10th graders, and we had the largest group of 10th graders. So the check-in and the affirmations at the beginning was, I think we only had maybe like 11 boys that day, or maybe even like 10 boys that day. And so the check-in, because there was more time, became more nuanced. The boys being slow, really talking about how they're feeling physically, really talking about their thoughts and their emotions. And it's coming around, and one junior is sharing, and the junior next to him says, "Would you like a hug?" And he goes, "Yeah." And they give each other, they're sitting down in chairs and they give each other hugs. Ashanti, that would not have happened. That would not have happened. And so like the courage to ask the question, the courage to say yes. But the reason the question was asked and the reason that it was answered with a yes is because we're starting to feel that this is healthy, that it's positive, and that it's something that we can do for each other. So I teach 9th graders, and in my 6th period class, this is so great. I come like, I'm getting stuff ready in class, and there's 20 students in that class period, and 3 of the boys who were part of the program are in that class, and they're all in like a big bear hug. They're all they're all like in this big bear hug together, and kids are like, "This is crazy. What is going on?" They're like, "Oh, we're just giving hugs right now." Right? It's unbelievable. And so I was talking with someone who I met this weekend who is a counselor at Elyria Schools, which is, pretty close to us, and he's like, and I'm telling him some of these stories, and he's like, one of the reasons why it's probably taken off for you all is that Oberlin is already kind of a different place. Right? And so when you were talking about the challenges with middle school, yes, absolutely. Like people who like good middle school teachers, I worship you because that I could not do that. But this thing has taken off because I think we selected the right group of kids to help redefine or reestablish what is normal. And this is a part of what it means to be normal. And now when we bump it up to 30 kids next year, we can have more kids who maybe this year would be like, "No, thanks, this is too corny." But we got enough kids, we have enough of a critical mass who are like, "Yeah, it may seem corny a little bit at first, but it feels right. It feels good, and you're being seen and heard. And this is a supportive place." And who's like, we're not going to knock that. There's no way. It's just too good.
Man, well, first of all, I think I said it once, but I'm going to say it again. Congratulations to you and Brother Cole, Johnny Cole, for the work you put in. Because for those who are listening, like, there's one thing to be like, I have a job as a teacher. Here's a job I have to do. That's already a full time. And then to do this other work, which then requires, sometimes you get pulled. Sometimes a teacher says, "Hey, I'm having a challenge with a kid. Can you come talk to them?" You get called in to duties that are on top of the regular job duties. And it's also because they become a part of you. They become a part of your heart, your thoughts. And for me, it's just beautiful. I wish there was more teachers who could do it, who did it, and I think that's the work that needs to happen. So I think the other school, and it's also this is my frustration with schools. I think sometimes people take the easy road out of not doing because they leave it as a, not saying that person was saying that. I'm only just name what I've seen. Oh, no, what? You all have a special community already. That's why it worked. No, it's like, no. Young men want to be heard, seen, and understood everywhere, I believe. And it just requires somebody who cares enough to say, it may be awkward and complex and difficult, but I believe it's a benefit to you too. And so,
if you're at that school, if you don't know the answer yourself, the adults to ask to find a critical mass of 12, 15, 20 boys who are going to be open to this. And even if it just stays that group of 20 boys, that's already a huge victory. And now, again, we're fortunate being such a small school that a small thing like this can have such a big footprint. That is not normal for a lot of other places, but it doesn't matter because good is good.
That's right. Well, listen, I want to respect your time. I think we went over our time. I apologize. I looked at the clock. I'm like, wait, how did that happen? Well, the time just went fast. How about you? If anybody is interested in the work you all doing, I think you have a name for it, the Oberlin, you call it the Oberlin Men's Project?
Yeah, it's called the Oberlin High School Men's Work Project. Now, I don't think we have any kind of like literature or anything out there, but Johnny Cole, who does this work, he is a part of the Hey Brother Co. And he's got a website. You can follow him on various forms of social media. I've got zero, social media, footprint, but that's all right. I got papers to grade and books to read. But who knows? But this is so good that we need to start getting the word out. And I just wanted it to be successful this year, and it has been. And I think Johnny has been in touch with some people who are looking to make like a really small kind of like documentary or like a small informational video where we can kind of like get this out there. And because it's a number of things need to fall into place for this to work, but it ain't rocket science. Yeah. We can do this. So, so we're at Oberlin High School. It's the Oberlin High School Men's Work Project. We're going to go from 19 boys to 30 next year. But if anyone's interested, they should follow Johnny Cole's stuff at Hey Brother Co. period.
And we'll put the link to that in. Johnny was also on a podcast a couple of months ago, so we'll make sure we link that so that you can. It was in the middle of his journey, so definitely now being able to hear from you toward the end is really exciting. So thank you for this. Thank you for being on with us during finals week. We appreciate you. And folks, look, brother David and I, we share our masks here publicly. Like, you don't have to share yours publicly. You can go to millionmask.org anonymously. And hopefully next year we'll get Oberlin to be a part of this experience and make masks digitally or in person. So maybe that's what we can do next year as partner, have your young men like invite the rest of the school to make masks and really do some deep dive in what's happening out there in the broader school community. I think that'll be really beautiful. So
Yeah, we're ready to make that next step. And what's exciting about that is that I think the boys will do it with passion and confidence, right?
Yeah.
And so again, it's like one of the most amazing things that I've been a part of, and I can't wait to do it again next year.
Let's go.
And what a pleasure to be here to speak with you. Like, you've been doing this for congratulations on the 20-year anniversary of Ever Forward. And this stuff that is so awesome. Like, to be here with you is great. And we're going to cross paths,
we are.
Person to person for sure.
We are. I can hear it in your voice, and that in the first year, you just feel the joy of all the hard work that went into it. So thank you for doing that work, and I appreciate you. And I'm excited. And thanks for being here with us on the podcast, and we'll see you real soon.
You got it. Peace. Thank you.
The Taking Off the Mask podcast is produced by Ryan Louie and graphics by Kelly Wong. Guests are managed by Dan Paloma, and the podcast is edited by Samuel Matingo. We'd like to thank everyone who's been a part of the creation of this podcast, and for every guest that has been a part of the show, you are now a part of the Taking Off the Mask family. The Taking Off the Mask podcast is brought to you by the Ever Forward Club, and if you like what you've heard today, please subscribe, write a 5-star review, and share this with someone. We look forward to having more conversations that matter. And please remember, there's more to you than anybody can see by just looking at you.